So I feel like I'm in this like perpetual state of trying to find ways to punt these rookie phase planners. And it's led me down the path to the LA Rams this year. And I want to talk about this move from Matt Stafford to Jared Goff means for the entire offense. So first off, I just want to plainly state it. Over the past 2 years, at very minimum, Stafford has been substantially better than Jared Goff in virtually every metric that I look at. So when I'm looking at quarterbacks, NFL quarterbacks, I'm looking at PFF grades. PFF, grades every play is kind of a pass-fail type of thing. Completion percentage over expected. So that's, just like it sounds, their completion or how many passes they're completing over what they should be, what they're expected to complete. And then we have expected points added. So this is just, this EPA is the acronym. This is looking at the points that they are responsible for. And then you combine the two for the last metric, which is EPA plus CPOE composite. So when we combine completion percentage over expected with expected points added. So in 2019, Stafford wins in every category by a lot. It isn't very close at all. In 2020, it's a little closer. 2020 PFF, Stafford wins. CPOE, actually Goff wins. EPA per play, Stafford wins. And then EPA plus CPOE composite, they're like neck and neck. And like I said, EPA plus CPOE composite is the most predictive quarterback metric. So they're actually pretty comparable. But when you look at the larger body of work, Stafford is lights out better. Lights out. Not a contest. So like Jared Goff's best season was 4,600 yards passing. That's his best season to date. And according to advanced metrics, he was a bit of a train wreck in it. Stafford actually has a 5,000 yard season on his resume right now. His career average, Stafford's career average is 273 passing yards per game. That's just shy of 4,400 passing yards. Goff's best season is 4,600 passing yards. Like Matt Stafford's average, his career average is approaching Jared Goff's ceiling. That's really exciting. Get excited for Matt Stafford with the LA Rams this year. Let's dig in a little deeper. 5.7% TD rate is in the upper echelon. That's what Matt Stafford had over the last 2 years. You know what Jared Goff's was? 3.55% TD rate. Not good. That is abysmal. Very, very not good. And then when you look at their play style, Jared Goff is a check down Charlie. Like he is the epitome of it. His air yards per attempt, according to playerprofiler.com. So this is actually looking at how far did the pass go in the air before it got to the target. 6.3, number 34 in the NFL for Goff. League worst. Contrast that with Stafford's Billy the Kid level gunslinger performance of 8.6 air yards per attempt, number 4 in the NFL. That's real good. You want quarterbacks to throw the ball down the field. Those are efficient touches for a fantasy offense. Now we're looking at Stafford and we're putting him in his best situation since back in the day when he was throwing bombs to Megatron. He's getting a coaching upgrade going from, the rocket scientist, Matt Patricia, to boy genius, Sean McVay. One of those guys is an offensive genius. One of those guys is Matt Patricia. This is a huge upgrade for Matt Stafford. When we're looking at the wide receivers, though, Robert Woods' ADOT was 7.1. Cooper Kupp's was 6.6 in 2020. Robert Woods is the guy that's targeted down the field. I think the move to Stafford is actually going to help Woods more than it helps Kupp. Woods runs the down the field routes. I don't really put a lot of stock in specific projections. I'm not in my spreadsheet being like, okay, yeah, Matt Stafford, we project him for 4,734 yards and 32.1 touchdowns. This is not how it works for me. I don't look at that level of detail when I'm doing projections. I'm just looking at high level. I want to know what's possible. And knowing what's possible and what would have to change is so valuable when it comes to fantasy football. This tells us their ceiling. This tells us their expected. And this tells us their floor. So, speaking of that, the Rams have had 37.6 attempts per game the past 2 years, roughly 600 attempts on average. Matt Stafford has averaged 8.15 yards per attempt over the past 2 years. If you take those together, 600 attempts at 8.15, you get out to roughly 4,900 passing yards. That is a top of the league type season. It is very rare for players to have 5,000 passing yards. That's a very, very, very simple explanation of why Matt Stafford has a very high ceiling. I wouldn't bank on it. I'm not going out saying, yep, Matt Stafford's going to pass for 4,900 passing yards, but I don't think it's unreasonable. His average is 4,400, and he played in some truly awful situations throughout his career. In 2018? He played with a broken bone in his back for most of the season. He had the worst season of his career. That's factored into his average. Last year, Kenny Golladay was out. He was throwing to Marvin Jones and a bunch of guys I can't even remember their names. That's factored into his average. He averages 4,400 yards. It's not outrageous to suggest he's going to outperform his average. That's all I'm saying. There is elite passing potential here for Matt Stafford. And then when we look at touchdown rate, over his last 2 years, he has a 5.7 touchdown rate. 600 attempts, 5.7 touchdowns, or 5.7% touchdowns, 34 touchdowns. We're looking at 4,900 passing yards, 34 touchdowns. We're talking about elite upside. So for the wide receivers, Woods and Kupp, they have been entrenched as wide receiver 2s basically since Jared Goff got good, when Sean McVay arrived on site. So check down Charlie, Jared Goff at the helm. Woods and Kupp, entrenched wide receiver 2s. The arrival of Matt Stafford is the high tide that raises all boats. Woods can be a just below the elite tier wide receiver this year. Kupp won't be far behind. These guys are all buys in Dynasty right now. Go get them.